disclosures, I don't sell aromatherapy or essential oils. I just really am passionate about the topic and very interested, especially as a pharmacist. So aromatherapy can be defined as the art and science of utilizing naturally extracted aromatic essences from plants to balance, harmonize, and promote the health of mind, body, and spirit. So really that holistic picture, right? Essential oils are mixtures of volatile organic compounds originating from a single botanical source, and that's important. And they contribute to the flavor and fragrance of a plant. So those are the official definitions. A few basics. So when you look for essential oils, it really should be from a single specified botanical source. So when you look on here, you see citrus limon, which is the genus and species, so the full name of what you're getting. There are a few different ways to extract essential oils, and that's important to know depending on what oil you're using, how it is extracted. So there's steam distillation, which I'll show you some pictures of in a moment. Expression, which is usually used for citrus to get those oils out of like the rind of the citrus, if you see those, if you look real close. And then there's supercritical CO2 extraction. A question for everyone, do you think essential oils are oily? Have you ever felt them? Yeah, they're a little oily. It's interesting, if you feel different essential oils, there are different degrees of oily. Some are a little more sticky or resinous. Some are really light and barely oily at all. So it really varies. It's kind of a trick question, but they are oily to some degree. They're also volatile, and that's why you can smell them. So the scents get in the air pretty rapidly. Being lipophilic, that means they love like oil. So that's important as we move on. Essential oils are also really important to plants. So they help provide protection to the plants and also help with infection control and wound healing of the plants themselves. So this is actually an event I went to, which was really neat, where they were making essential oils using a still. So basically how you do it is the plant material, especially if it's something hard, so like a bark or something a little harder, is put down here with the water. It basically boils, so there's a heat source here, boils, steams up through here, and then it condenses down through here where the ice is, and comes out into like a collection vessel. The next one, actually, if you have something a little lighter, like a grass or a leaf, you put them up in here. You boil the water down here. Again, it comes up and through, carries the essential oils with it, as well as the water component, which is your hydrosol. So the hydrosol is on the bottom, the oil floats on top. So just to kind of go over, basically, that's steam distillation. Homeopathy versus essential oils. How many people are familiar with homeopathy? So I think of them as almost the opposite ends of the spectrum. So homeopathy is very dilute. So as you can see, you start with maybe an original substance, which is like your mother tincture. You take 1 drop and then 99 drops of water. Then you take 1 drop of that mixture with 99 drops of water, and so on and so on. And so it's very, very dilute. Aromatherapy is basically the exact opposite. Very, very, very concentrated. So if you look, it takes 2 pounds of lavender flowers, which those lavender flowers are pretty light. So that's a lot of lavender flowers, just to make 1 milliliter, which is about 20 drops or so of essential oil. So very, very concentrated. Or 5,500 roses to make 1 milliliter. So again, that's why essential oils cost quite a bit, and you should use them with caution. There's this term, neat, and neat means applying it undiluted to the skin. Applying essential oils neat can sometimes get you in trouble with kind of some irritation or photosensitivity reaction. So generally, I don't advise applying oils neat. There are some cases where it may be okay, sometimes with lavender, occasionally you'll hear tea tree, but generally speaking, essential oils should be diluted. And rarely you would see a dilution greater than 10%. So again, very diluted. Most commonly you'll see 2 to 5%. So dilution, I gave you this little handy drop guide here, which I love. So depending on the size of your bottle, if you're making a say a 1% dilution, you would have 10 milliliters of oil with just 3 drops of essential oil in there. So this is a really handy little guide of how to dilute. And again, this just talks about essentially the same thing. As far as what dilution you should be using, this is just a handy guide. So if you're putting it on your face, again, very dilute. So maybe a 0.2 to a 1.5% dilution. If you're putting it all over your body, again, a big area, so using more oil, it's about a 1.5 to 3%. Bath and body products, 1 to 4%. Specific problems are where you might use it a little more concentrated. And then pain and wounds, again, a little more concentrated. But very specific indications for how you would dilute it. So there's 3 main methods of application. So we'll talk about ingestion, skin contact, and then inhalation. So ingestion, you'll see it out there. People recommend ingesting essential oils all the time. That is something I do not recommend. And many experts in aromatherapy also do not recommend that unless you're working with like a clinical aromatherapist who has lots of training. There can be toxicity to liver and kidneys. There's also, as a pharmacist, the potential for drug interactions, which I think is very important to realize. There are some oils especially that you want to avoid ingesting, and I've listed those here. The second route would be topically or through the skin. And this is a great route for using essential oils. You're going to have higher absorption in areas with more hair and sweat glands because those are kind of the more oily areas. And the hydrophilic molecules use those sweat glands. Lipophilic molecules are going to use the oil glands. So lipophilic would be like your essential oils. Anytime you're increasing circulation by massage or warming the skin, you're also going to increase absorption. You can use carrier oils or bases, gels, creams, those sorts of things to either speed up or slow down your absorption as well. So an example of doing this would be a blend containing ginger, which you would dilute, and then you could apply it to the skin to reduce pain from arthritis. This is used quite often for like knee pain, like osteoarthritis. Ginger is wonderful for that. And in the back, I actually have ginger tea. Again, it's really warming. It can help with digestion, like after a meal. So I love ginger for a number of reasons. So water and water-based gels increase absorption of the oils. Because the oil, if you want to think about it, the oil wants to repel the water. So it wants to get away from it and move into the skin. So if you need to remove oil from the skin, so say you put it on and you're like, oh my gosh, you know, this is too strong, or for whatever reason I put on too much, you would want to use an oil to remove it versus water. So again, oils, wax, creams, lotions slow down absorption. There are other types of topical application as well, which we'll talk about. You can have sensitivity reactions to using it topically. So oftentimes I recommend doing a little patch test. So if you haven't used a specific oil before, dilute it how you're going to dilute it, but just put it in a really small area. Make sure you don't have any reaction to it, and then if you want to use it more broadly, you could. So sometimes you have to worry about cross-sensitivity as well. I haven't really honestly seen this too much, but there is the potential that like chamomile could cross-react in someone who has a ragweed allergy and cause a reaction. So just be cautious there. We'll talk about bergamot and lime a little more towards the end, but phototoxicity is real, and it is a big problem with essential oils. So that means it can basically cause you to get a very severe sunburn, which you would otherwise not get from being outside. So it would be like an unexpectedly bad sunburn from applying the oils, and it's usually just where you've applied them. So for people who maybe put on like a perfume or rub something on their neck and then go out in the sun, they can get extremely bad sunburns. So essential oils in the bathtub is another popular thing to talk about. You have to be really careful here. Essential oils, again, are not going to dissolve in water. So you're basically putting a film of essential oil on top of the bath water, if it's not diluted in anything. And if you get in, that is gonna coat all over your skin. And so you're basically applying oil neat to your skin, which can definitely cause some burning or sensitivity. And then you're in a hot bath, which is gonna increase absorption. So be careful with that. I would not recommend that. So what you wanna do is just mix some, like a couple drops, 2 to 5 drops of essential oils with a dispersing agent. So there's some natural bath gels, like specific emulsifiers, or you can use vegetable oil. I would say be careful with vegetable oil. It's gonna make your tub pretty slippery, but you can do it. They say the fractionated coconut oil is a little lighter. That generally doesn't make it quite as slippery. Or like an MCT oil would also work. That wouldn't be quite as slippery. But definitely don't add the oils direct to the bathtub. There's been a number of cases of children getting hurt this way because parents will drop a couple drops in the bathtub and then put their children in. And again, it goes direct onto their skin. So again, this is just a quick little graphic. There is some stuff out there like that you can use milk or Epsom salt or witch hazel or glycerin or aloe vera. Those things actually have not been shown to be useful in keeping the oil suspended. So they'll certainly mix with the oil, but then once they get into the water, the oil again comes out of that mixture and can go direct onto your skin. So the next route is inhalation, and that's what we're often thinking of when we just smell like a cotton ball, or you smell a flower, or say you smell directly the oils or herbs, teas. So we're smelling stuff all day long. Our smell is really attached to the limbic system, which is your emotional brain. So think of, you know, when you smell something you love, how you feel about that, or like a scent you love, like fresh baked cookies or fresh baked bread. You have like that scent association. And then there's other scents that maybe you just hate. I had lavender oil over doing a training at the healthcare center, and someone was like, oh my gosh, I hate lavender. And I was like, oh, how can you hate lavender? Like, I love lavender. But everybody feels differently about the scent. So really important to think about that. As you're smelling the oils, some things might give you a really positive response and some things may not. But there can be a use or a benefit to smelling oils which make you feel good, right? And so that's where some of the mood uplifting can come from with essential oils. You also can get a little bit of the essential oils by inhalation down into the lungs. So you'll hear sometimes people recommend using rosemary or eucalyptus or peppermint if they're congested, diffusing it to help kind of break up some of that congestion. So here's just a pretty little picture of somebody smelling, and you see the limbic system is here in the brain, the olfactory bulb where what is kind of your smelling ability. So that smell comes in, and again a little bit might get down into the lungs. There's a few different types of inhalation or like methods to inhalation. So you can do the dry evaporation method, which is what we do here with patients in the hospital, in the nursing home. We just basically use a cotton ball and we stick them on a couple drops on a cotton ball, stick it in a little baggie, and people can smell it as often as they'd like. And I'll pass these around towards the end too. There's diffusers, vaporizers, and the difference here, I tend to like the vaporizer better than like a diffuser where you have a candle source under it. The candle's a little hard to control the heat. You can sometimes overheat the oils and it gets hot and sticky and just not as great. The vaporizers are nice because it's water and a fan, and it's not heating the oil. So generally they smell better, I think, and they're less overwhelming, and it's a little more distributed, or a little more well distributed. You can also make spray bottles, and we'll talk about that, and use steam. So again, a few uses of diffusing essential oils. So you can just do it to make your room smell good instead of using the chemical air fresheners that you plug in that we're all kind of familiar with. You can also use it for stress and anxiety reduction, for sleep. which my daughter loves. I have a sleep blend that we rub on her pillow every night, and she loves that. You can use it for mood, like I mentioned. It's connected with that emotional memory. It can also increase alertness. Mandarin and a lot of the citrus are really known for that. Same thing with peppermint. It can also purify and improve air quality, like if you think of tea tree oil, that's a great example. Also reduce airborne pathogens. So again, there's direct inhalation, like smelling it from a handkerchief or a cotton ball or directly from the bottle. Direct palm inhalation, so putting it on your palms, rubbing them together, smelling your hands, or again, you can waft from the bottle. You can also use inhaler tubes, which are pictured here. Essentially, it's like a little lipstick that they either put a piece of cotton in or they'll put Epsom salts or salts that have oils on them so that you can open up the little lipstick tube and basically smell it anytime throughout the day. So it's a really nice way to deliver essential oils and just kind of carry them in your purse. So steam inhalation is great, but can be a little too much sometimes. So it's using hot water, nearly boiling water, and just putting a drop or two of essential oils in. You don't want to put like 10 drops in because again, the hot water is going to make it evaporate more quickly, and so it can be very overwhelming. Here are a few different oils that work well with steam inhalation, especially if it's that cold season and you're feeling congested and trying to open up the lungs. You can cover the head with a towel to kind of keep that steam in and just kind of hang out over the bowl for a few minutes. It is important though, keep your eyes closed. You should not get essential oils in your eyes. So when you're steaming your face, you would want to keep your eyes closed. So sprays are great, again, as a room freshener, or just if you want to, enhance your breathing, change your emotional state, things like that. Here's how to make a spray, very easy, and then you just want to shake them each time before you use them, because if you're just using like a distilled water with it, you're going to separate out into oil and water. So you just shake it up good, or you can use like a soluble, which is kind of a agent to help it stay mixed. So toxicity and cautions, it's really rare via inhalation and when it's properly diluted and applied topically. Generally, essential oils are very safe when used correctly. You have to be careful if someone has asthma or other reactive airway disease. Again, you don't want to trigger an asthma attack. You want to have a trusted resource. So it's great, I have some resources at the end, but it's good to have a good trusty book that you can look to as far as guidance, as far as like reasons why not to use it or potential cautions for specific oils, because they are all different. You can't broadly say all oils are safe or not safe or whatever. Accidental ingestion is really a big deal, especially with little kids. So I say do not purchase essential oils without drop restrictors, and that's that little piece that fits in the top. Children as young as 3 have been known to even take out the drop restrictors and drink the full contents of essential oils. So very, very, very dangerous for children, and very important to have those restrictors in there, but also to keep them out of the reach of children. Caution with pregnant women. So there are certain oils that should be avoided during pregnancy and lactation. I have a few listed here. Certainly if anyone needs more specific information on this, I can provide it. But oils can cross the placenta, and there's really little research on kind of the effects of that. So again, I would use caution here. When using essential oils with children, again, I don't recommend ingestion for everybody or anybody, but especially not children. You do not want to add them undiluted to the bathwater. Keep them out of reach of children. And then don't apply oils near a child's face, especially when it comes to peppermint oil. Menthol can actually stop breathing in children, and they've had cases of that as well. And then if a baby would have the G6PD deficiency, they could develop jaundice. And just in general, don't expose children less than 5 to really strong essential oil vapors. hydrosols are a great option. They are much safer, and I'll go ahead and just start passing these around. So this one is lavender. I love using this for children. And I'll start over here. This is Rose Otto. This is a great one for skin care, but also very safe for children. So this is just a little graphic about are eucalyptus and peppermint safe for young children. And they talk about the levels. So under 3, peppermint's best avoided altogether. Eucalyptus can be diffused or applied topically only up to 0.5%. So again, it would have to be very dilute. And then ages 3 to 6, you could apply it topically up to 0.5% peppermint and then up to 1% with eucalyptus. So again, just being cautious with children. So this is a larger version of what I showed you earlier as far as a still. So this is like a dream still, if you ask me. But again, they're making essential oils as well as the hydrosol here. So hydrosols are the byproduct of essential oil distillation. So they contain the water-soluble elements of the plant, which is really cool. So they're also known as floral waters, hydrolates, or distillates, but they're not essential oils added to water, and sometimes that gets confused. They are safe for skincare and for young children. So very, very small percentage of essential oils actually in there. And I'll go ahead and pass around a couple more. The rosemary, I think, is probably my favorite. And there's a lemon verbena and a peppermint. The peppermint, I think, is particularly good for hot flashes. And like when you feel very warm, it has a very nice cooling sensation to it. Also, with hydrosols, they are safe to ingest. So you can actually make like spritzers with them. So people will use like rose water in a spritzer. But it is recommended to store them in the refrigerator. The shelf life is 12 to 24 months. You would just want to watch out for any like bacterial blooms in them. So with hydrosols, I actually like to take like the oil that I'm going to apply to my face, and then I spray the hydrosol in my hand and mix them together and then apply it. But hydrosols are more acidic, so they're a toner basically. So are really nice for the face. As far as regulation goes around essential oils, there's a lot of talk of this in the news and people who are interested in essential oils. There's some kind of controversy here as far as how it should be regulated, but really it kind of depends on what they're claiming. So if they're claiming just things regarding beauty, so essential oils make you more attractive or cleaner, then there's no pre-approval, but the FDA could still take action. So it's still regulated by the FDA, but in a different way. If they claim anything regarding health, so any sort of structure or function claim, it's actually considered a drug then, which is regulated in a completely different way than a beauty claim. So, but again, still regulated by the FDA. Regulations on drugs are a lot more strict than what would be the regulations on cosmetics. And then any sort of claims made in advertising but not on the labeling are under the Federal Trade Commission. And then air fresheners, detergents, all the other scented stuff out there is regulated by the Consumer Product Safety Commission. So quality is another big question that I get a lot. And it's kind of hard. There's a lot of claims out there that don't necessarily mean a lot. So there are a couple certifications that are good to look for. The ISO, EcoCert International, GRAS, but the term therapeutic grade or grade A oil is literally just a marketing term. There's no standard for what that means. So it doesn't necessarily mean anything. So you also want to be careful because how the plants are grown, how they're manufactured, how they're distributed, how they're stored, all affects the quality of the oil. So you want a reputable manufacturer that's producing oils in a way that preserves that quality. They can be adulterated as well, so containing undisclosed ingredients or other like carrier oils in there to kind of dilute them out so that since essential oils are expensive, it's a way you can get more oil for less money. Also, oils degrade pretty quickly when they're exposed to heat, light, or oxygen. So you want to make sure you're storing your oils properly. So they should be in dark glass and, again, cool temperature. It says refrigerate, and that's what the books recommend. I don't personally refrigerate my essential oils because I would probably never remember to use them. But if you want to keep them best quality, you would keep them cool. You also may want to consider replacing them after a year. This is a little bit controversial though, because some aromatherapists will tell you there are certain oils that get better with age. So you don't have to get rid of them after a year, but after a year, just consider smelling them, see if it's still along the lines of what you like. If you notice anything off about it, you could certainly replace it. As far as tea tree oil goes, I'll talk more about this, but it can oxidize and people can actually have skin reactions to it after the bottle has been open and exposed to air for too long. So tea tree oil is one that I actually recommend replacing regularly every couple of years. So what we want to look for is that it's genuine, authentic, so just from one plant source, and you know the source, that they're able to provide the mass spec and gas chromatography reports for each essential oil sold. So you could ask the company this question. If they can't provide that for you, I would probably look to another company. So that's just showing that what they have there has the chemical signature of what it should, basically. Also material safety data sheets, especially if you're using them kind of in a clinical setting like we are. We want to know if someone has any sort of exposure, what are the proper steps, all that sort of stuff. Also, the label should include the common name and the Latin name, so genus and species, the country of origin, the part of the plant that's processed, and that makes a big difference. So are we using the root? Are we using the leaf? Are we using the flower? Obviously, all those things are going to smell different and have different medicinal qualities if you're going for that. And then how was it grown? So I personally am very partial to organic. That is my preference because especially when you think of essential oils and using such a large bulk of flour or raw ingredient and then concentrating that down, I don't want any pesticide residue on there. And then smell to compare, and that's the fun part. So if you go to like your co-ops or wherever and they have multiple brands, pick the same oil and smell it across brands and notice where it's grown. You'll start to notice that there's variations from manufacturer to manufacturer. So now for kind of the fun part. Carrier oils. So I mentioned carrier oils. There are a few different ways to extract carrier oils, and this is something I get kind of passionate about because I think this way not only for what we apply on our skin, but also for what we put in our body. So these are important terms to use. Your skin's your largest organ, so if you're putting something all over your skin, you want to make sure that it's healthy for your body as well. So as far as oils go, there's a solvent extraction process, which is basically if an oil doesn't say how it's extracted, this is probably it. It's the cheapest and most efficient way to extract oil from like a seed or a nut. So basically they use a solvent like hexane to get the oil out of there, and then they heat, or out of the nut or seed. They kind of grind it all up, use the hexane, and then they do a flash process that basically burns off the hexane, but it still can have like small amounts of hexane that are allowed to remain in the oil. They often also will do like refining processes where they'll bleach or deodorize oil. They may also degum them or winterize them. So these are some common oils that those are done to. Those things are done to. So I would recommend, like for the oils you cook with or you eat, just to be cautious of this and be aware, but also for your skincare oils. So then there's cold pressed. So then there's expeller pressed. So they don't use any chemicals in the extraction process, which is great. It does get a little hotter, so it still can get up to 210 degrees. And then there still be maybe some refining going on. So they may use steam or like earthen bleaching clay, or they could use the bleach or deodorization as stated above. So that's kind of like the middle ground, like that's better. But then the best would be cold pressed. So it's processed below 122 degrees. It applies to oils that are cold pressed and not heated later during the refining process either. So there's a lot of methods here, but basically it's a more careful method of getting the oil out that isn't going to change the structure of the oil or have any residual of other chemicals left. So one of my favorites is jojoba oil. This is actually a desert plant, and I was out in Arizona last year, and we were hiking in the desert, and there was a little plaque like labeling this plant, and I was like, oh my gosh, I've never seen this. Like, I didn't even know it was here in Arizona. So it was kind of neat to see the plant in person. But jojoba has a oil structure that's really similar to your skin's own oil. So they say it's more like a liquid wax almost. Very good for cleansing. So I like to do oil cleansing at night, so I'll rub jojoba oil on my face, then take like a warm washcloth and wipe it off. And that's just an alternative to using soap. It contains naturally E and B complexes, and then again supports clear, clean skin and healthy hair and scalp. It also really blends well with most essential oils. Argan oil is another popular one. People use this a lot in their hair. Great carrier for essential oils as well. Again, it has a lot of beneficial antioxidants, essential fatty acids, and vitamin E, and it really absorbs well. Sweet almond oil is another popular carrier. This one's nice because it doesn't really have much of a scent to it at all. It's usually reasonably priced. Again, it supports kind of smooth, nourished skin. You can use it as a cleanser or spot treatment for areas of concern. It's good for sensitive, irritated, or dry skin. You do have to be a little bit careful in people who have allergies to various things. So if someone has a really, really serious like nut allergy, I would be careful about using nut oils. Even though it doesn't contain the protein of the plant, very possible that they could still react to the oil. So just use caution there. Olive oil is the most universal oil. I like this because it's also fairly hypoallergenic. Most people don't react to olive oil. Olive oil is amazing on the skin. It's also amazing to cook with. So you get a double bonus. And there's no like special, like you can use the same olive oil you cook with if you buy a good olive oil and put it on your skin. You don't have to buy like a skincare grade olive oil. It is very easy to use it both ways. So again, contains vitamin E and antioxidants. There's a ton of different uses or benefits from using olive oil. Again, great carrier oil for essential oils as well. So then getting to lavender oil. So this is probably one of the most popular. I'll start passing this around. And in the background of my slides, it's really, oh, you can't really see it too well. I have the pictures of everything, but they're kind of washed out. So how many people have seen or grown lavender? Most people. Good, yeah. So lavender is beautiful. It has a really distinctive smell. You can use it in cooking. You can use it in skincare. It's very safe, I think. You can even apply this one neat. This is one of the only ones I would say that's relatively safe to do that with. Some of the properties are listed here. Again, a number of different uses. Very soothing to the skin, so great for insect bites, if people have itching or, you know, all sorts of different things. Also thought of very highly for use in anxiety or stress or difficulty sleeping. Some people, if you overdo it with lavender, can actually be stimulated by lavender, so you don't want to like go crazy on the lavender. but a little bit of lavender can really be calming. Back there, I brought a lavender chamomile tea. So even if you didn't drink it now, feel free to take one and take it home with you. Have some before bedtime. Again, very calming and soothing. There's also a product out there, and again, most things I don't recommend taking by mouth, but there's a product out there that is an encapsulated lavender oil by a specific company, which I do feel okay about people taking, and it's specifically used for anxiety. So if anyone wants to talk more about that afterwards, I can share a little information about that as well. At the bottom, I just put a few blending tips. So usually blends well with citrus, so like a lavender, lemon, mint, or conifers. So bergamot smells amazing. I love bergamot. I did not bring a bergamot to smell, but I did bring mandarin. So it's another citrus. So it can be used for a lot of different skin reasons, so acne, oily skin, cold sores, even depression, sadness, or grief, stress. Very uplifting. Most of the citruses are. The safety, though, is the big thing here. So the cold pressed oil is highly phototoxic. So the maximum you'd want to use is 0.4%, which is very dilute. So you want to look for products that have the bergaptine removed, so that's the part that can cause the phototoxic reaction, or that are steam distilled. If it doesn't say on there, definitely call and ask. And so bergamot, just a fun fact, is that citrus flavor you taste if you're an Earl Grey tea drinker. That little like citrus you get with Earl Grey tea is bergamot. So this next picture is a little bit graphic, I'm sorry, but this is showing you the reaction, the phototoxic reaction from bergamot. So when I say it can give you a burn, I'm not lying. It can really, really burn you. So bergaptine free is super important if you're going to use bergamot. And I would recommend, if you're going to use bergamot, it's very dilute, and you're not putting it on areas and then that would be exposed to the sun. So ginger, like I said in the back, we've got ginger tea. I love ginger in all forms. It is spicy and warming, especially this time of the year in the fall. Spicy and warming feels so good. Helps with digestion. Can help with aching muscles, arthritis, nausea, and that's something we use it for in the clinic, in the hospital. Even just smelling ginger can really help with nausea. And I'm going to send ginger around. I'm also going to send a little thing of coffee around, so if you're getting kind of tired of smelling different scents, you can refresh in the middle. But ginger is amazing. Ginger on your food, like seasoning, also is very helpful for pain, or people will take ginger by mouth for pain and encapsulate it. So lots of different ways, or as a tea. Really no special precautions when you're using it as an essential oil, although it could have some low-level phototoxicity. Again, make sure it's properly diluted. Since it's warming and spicy, just imagine warming and spicy on your skin if it's undiluted. So properly dilute it. Black pepper is an interesting one. Not something people always think of when it comes to essential oils. So black pepper is actually pretty cool. I like it. It is used for, and I don't have these up here, but for people who have carb cravings, black pepper can be used. It can also be used to help with smoking cessation, so smelling the black pepper when you want to have a cigarette. Also is that spicy and warming, so you can use it for aching muscles, arthritis, constipation, because again it's going to get the bowels moving, and then muscle cramps, digestion, that sort of stuff. So again, no special cautions, with the caveat that you are diluting it properly. And you want to avoid the use of oxidized oil. So like I talked about with tea tree oil, replace it regularly, keep the cap on, but you don't want to let it be exposed to air or warm temperatures. Helichrysum, I love. I don't have a sample of that here. I do have frankincense, which I'll send around. So helichrysum is anti-inflammatory. It helps with muscle aches and pains, acne, irritated skin, and nervous exhaustion. And so I think helichrysum is beautiful to mix in like a facial oil. So if you dilute it with a little bit of oil and apply it to the skin, it's really beneficial. Again, no special safety precautions, assuming it's diluted, and blends really, really well with lavender and Roman chamomile, clary sage, frankincense, and sweet orange. Tea tree. I think most people have probably tried tea tree in the past, or at least smelled tea tree. Tea tree is really known for its antibacterial and antifungal properties. People use it for acne, athlete's foot, yeast infections, cold sores, all sorts of different things. Again, properly diluted. Low risk of skin sensitization, like I talked about, especially if the oil has been oxidized. So using caution there.
What's that first name on top?
Oh, sure. So this is the genus and species. So this is like its botanical name. So again, one thing I should make a bigger point about is there are multiple types of many of these plants. So like the common name is tea tree, but there are many genus or many species under like the tea tree category. Or if you look at lavender is a really good example. There's lavender angustifolia. There's like a spike lavender. There's all different types of lavender. So just being careful that you know the genus and species that you're looking for.
Can you pronounce that?
Melaleuca alternifolia is what I would say, but Melaleuca is kind of a common thing that people refer also to tea tree as. So. Right. So next is rosemary. Many of us cook with rosemary. It's a wonderful spice. It's invigorating, refreshing, stimulating. Let me see if I did not bring rosemary, but I do have eucalyptus. We'll pass that. Rosemary can be used again for aching muscles, arthritis, dandruff. People often use it for hair care. You just want to make sure again that it's well diluted, because you'll see in the in the safety that it is a potential neurotoxin. So you don't want to just put rosemary oil directly on your scalp. You would want to dilute it. And it depends on the level of camphor present in the oil. And again, that goes to the species. So some of them will have more camphor than others. Can be used for circulation. But you'll see here the Rosmarinus officinalis. The Cineol version is preferred for use in respiratory and circulatory issues. So if you're using it for like congestion or cold, that's what you want to be looking for. Peppermint, the next one, is pretty common. I have spearmint here to smell because most people know about peppermint or have smelled peppermint. Peppermint makes a wonderful tea this time of year. Again, another good one after a meal to help with digestion. It's fresh, cooling, minty, uplifting, kind of stimulating. So they say to generally avoid it before bedtime. You can also, just in general, make a tea with peppermint and then even make it into like a hot cocoa. So adding like chocolate to peppermint tea makes a wonderful mint cocoa. And when you make teas, you're again getting some of that essential oil from the plant, from the tea. So what you're smelling when you smell the fragrance of the tea is some of that essential oil vapor. So a few uses here, again, useful for a number of different indications. Can potentially irritate mucous membranes, can cause stimulation of the gallbladder in high amounts. There's a risk of neurotoxicity, again, if it was very concentrated and applied directly, but you don't want to over concentrate it. So they say to avoid cardiac fibrillation and to fix PD deficiency, and don't apply it near the face of infants or children. Chamomile is another favorite, excellent for sleep and kind of calming. And then I'll pass the coffee again. Yep. So this one again, calming, sedating, anti-inflammatory. They're most commonly as German chamomile and Roman chamomile. So you'll see a couple varieties there if you go look. And it's good to compare and see what your preference is. Again, a number of usage listed here. Very safe, even safe for use with children, again, when it's properly diluted. Here are some publications that are out there on aromatherapy. These are all really great publications. I know one thing I talk with people a lot is sometimes it's hard to find reliable information when it comes to aromatherapy. There's a lot on Google, and some's good, some's not, but these are good resources for aromatherapy. And that is it. Can I answer any questions for you guys? Yes.
When you were on slide with diffusers, you talked about diffusers with a candle.
Yeah.
What about, I mean, we use electric diffuser,
Yeah.
so you don't have the problem with, I mean, you've got a constant even heat.